Hubert Opperman limbers up for the greatest mass attack on records athletics have ever known. His tyres are hissing round the timber bowl of Sydney's sports arena in a 24 hours non-stop ride. A team of timekeepers check the laps and their heads whirl like Opperman's flying pedals as he smashes 20 records and sets up 30 new ones. 24 hours and over 50 records. No wonder you wonder how he keeps going. Well, here's how. His trainer just lies in wait with a patent atomizer. He blows it in Oppy's face and cools his calves. Oh, Mr. Opperman, here's a letter for you with the tax collector's compliments. Returned with Mr. Opperman's compliments. How on earth do you make these records, Oppy?
Here is a typical day's diet. I drink plenty of milk. I eat shredded raw carrots with tomatoes and lettuce. I have raw egg yolks with orange juice to make them just a little bit more palatable.
So it's as easy as all that, is it? Eat right, drink right, and anybody could do it. Is that right?
Certainly, provided you have a wife like Mrs. Oppy.
But when it comes to strong men of the road, Sir Hubert Opperman was in a class of his own. Oppy was a hero of the Great Depression, battling against overwhelming odds, conquering incredible journeys in his record-breaking rides. Let's take this look at Australia's cycling legend, the Great Oppy.
Well, that was a hard ride, but my old Malvern Star brought me home. Honestly, I feel attached to this Australian machine on which I have ridden so many thousands of miles. It has done everything which my old friend Bruce Small prophesied.
Bruce Small and Hubert Opperman were inseparable. Opperman's first prize in cycling was a bicycle, presented by the then unknown bike shop owner from Malvern. Small offered to manage the young Oppy, and this partnership of promotional genius and endless stamina brought fame to them and their bicycle, the Malvern Star. Oppy was a post office messenger boy when he first showed promise of the peddling feats to come.
This is where I actually started my cycling, I suppose. Certainly I was on the heavy PMG bikes, but I was on them for 2.5 years, and I believe that the 6 days a week and the constant pedalling must have developed stamina and speed.
Oppy was 25 when Small dreamed up a grand plan. They would set sail for Europe. Small convinced European promoters that they hadn't seen anyone quite so amazing, and perhaps they hadn't. This rare footage is the finish in Paris of the 1,400-kilometre classic from Paris to Brest and back. Oppy had pedalled non-stop for 49 hours, fighting tiredness by smacking his forehead. He came from last in this group to win, and then he was crowned long-distance champion of the world.
If you haven't got that exhaustion that you fight off and handle to the best of your capacity, well, it'd be easy for everybody to break records. That's part and parcel of the record breaking as to how far the will can drive the muscles.
Oppy became more popular in Europe than any other Australian before him, and he came home triumphant. He set or broke some 103 records, and it took 38 years for his Sydney to Melbourne record to be broken.
Perhaps above everything else, I am more proud to think that I have brought a world's record to Australia. For these days, after my travels abroad, I am more Australian than ever.
Oppy later tackled politics and rose to become a federal cabinet minister and was later knighted. And today, at 85, he can still be seen riding his old Malvern Star. He really is unstoppable Oppy.
I still like to pedal, and invariably, while you're doing it, your mind goes back to the old days, and the rhythm of the pedals comes in.
Well, Oppy was so popular that when he took to politics, he once beat a young Labor candidate for an election for the seat of Corio, and that loser was Robert Lee Hawke.
the amazing Oppy, 4 times Australian road champion. Rode in the Tour de France in 1928 and 1931. Won the world's longest road race, the Paris-Brest-Paris. Won the French Bol d'Or, a 24-hour track race. In the 1,000 miles motor pace ride in Sydney, he broke 101 records. Broke the record for the Perth to Sydney, cheered on by thousands. Hubert Opperman, or Oppy as he's more affectionately known, was probably the greatest endurance cyclist the world has ever seen. Hubert Opperman was born in 1904 at Rochester, north of Bendigo in Victoria. He was one of 4 children. His ancestors on his father's side had come from Germany to South Australia in 1853. His mother's ancestors were Scottish. At 8, Oppy discovered bikes.
I'll never forget the joy that I had when I finally conquered it and balanced and pedalled. I resolved if I ever could take up a sport, it would be cycling.
But first, a job. He joined the post office as a telegram messenger. Cycling all day delivering telegrams meant that Oppy built up stamina and strength. He started racing on the weekends, and at 17 he had his first success in the 10-mile event. His lifelong passion for cycling had begun. With Malvern Star sponsorship behind him, Oppy's cycling career took off. He won the Launceston to Hobart in 1922. Bruce Small quickly became Oppy's cycling manager and boss when he encouraged him to leave the post office and join the Malvern Star business.
Bruce Small was a father and manager and mentor and commercial advisor for me.
Oppy's riding went from strength to strength, winning the 1927 Dunlop Grand Prix, over 1,000 kilometres in 4 stages. The Sporting Globe newspaper rallied the public and raised £1,250 to send a 4-man team to the greatest road race in the world, the Tour de France.
And the public demanded that we go over to France and clean them frogs up, you know.
The Tour de France was over 5,000 kilometres, run in 22 stages over 4 weeks, with la crème de la crème of cyclists participating over some of the most treacherous and grueling terrain. Oppy had completed not just 1 superhuman feat, but 2. He'd won the Bol d'Or under the gaze of adoring crowds, breaking 2 world records after 24 hours of racing. Then rode for another 79 minutes to break the 1,000-kilometre world record.
They called me after the race the phenomenon, and that to have praise like that in France was just nectar to me.
Europe was ecstatic. He was voted the most popular athlete by a French sporting magazine. He returned to Australia 24 years old, the most famous Australian athlete Europe had known. In 1939, the Second World War began, and it was this world event which led to the quiet retirement of one of the world's greatest cyclists. At age 37, Hubert Opperman joined the RAAF as a PT trainer. When the war ended, Oppy returned to Malvern Star, but his life was about to change. The government wanted to repossess some land, and the residents organised a protest meeting. He was once again thrust into the public eye.
They were short of a speaker, and they hauled me up on the platform, and I don't remember what I said politically, but it was again the government, I know.
Prime Minister Menzies welcomed him to the government in 1949. Liberal member for Corio in what had been a Labour electorate. He was to hold that electorate for the next 18 years until he retired from politics. As the years have progressed, Sir Hubert Opperman has become a grand old man of cycling, and the sheer number of races and records that he broke still seem incredible. The French still hold him dear to their hearts. In 1991, he was invited to Paris for the anniversary of the Brest-Paris, which he'd won 60 years earlier. However, at 90, Sir Hubert Opperman did finally give up cycling, but not without a ceremony. As a tribute to this great Australian cyclist, Rochester, the home of his birth, has dedicated an Oppy Museum to his great feats and achievements and a statue for posterity.
I suppose deep down I felt that I was had something that other fellas didn't have.